Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. And he's been nervous and afraid to release this video because videos where there's speaking involved on this channel do not do so well. But today we're going to be talking about the DCU TV shows and film slates so far, and like many other people, he has thoughts. But before they start talking about these projects and what projects that absolutely should be included in a DC Universe franchise, and some unusual projects that have been announced, he would like you guys to hit that like button and subscribe. You guys hitting that like button would help him out a lot, and subscribing to this channel is going to let this channel grow more. For the people who have been returning to the channel and watching the videos, thank you. But also hit the like button if you're returning. And people who are not subscribers, but check out the video even for a little bit. Hopefully you stick around for the entire video and enjoy what you hear enough to make you like the videos and subscribe. If you like books, music, games, and wrestling, then hit the subscribe button. Also, if you can leave a like on this video, it would be very much appreciated. Alright, so we're going to be looking at Wikipedia. Yeah. It says, in early December, Gunn and Safran were finalizing their plans ahead of a meeting with Zaslav. Sorry if he botches any of these names. Patty Jenkins was no longer developing a sequel to her DCEU films Wonder Woman from 2017 and Wonder Woman 1984 from 2020, after being told by Gunn and Safran that such a film did not fit within their new plans. Various rumors about the plans were circulating, including that the DCU would be a complete reboot of the DCEU that moved away from the actors cast by Snyder, that Matt Reeves' The Batman films would be integrated with the DCU, and that Aquaman actor Jason Momoa would be recast as the character Lobo. These reveals and rumors led to concerns within the industry and among DC fans about the direction Gunn and Safran were taking the franchise, and Gunn put out a statement saying they were coming into a fractious environment and there would be an unavoidable transitional period as they moved into telling a cohesive story across film, TV, animation, and gaming. Now, film and TV, I think you can do that, but the animation, but gaming is the only part of that statement where because people have said that developing games takes a long time, longer than TV shows and movies. At least he thinks he heard that from somewhere. So if he would have I think he should have just said film, TV, and animation, and you could do like games, like the games are, you could make like DCU games, yeah, sure, but like not like it doesn't it isn't because the story gaming isn't involved in the cohesive story. It's just animation, TV shows and films, just in his opinion though. So what he just read was from the development section, and so yeah. And from where this part comes from, after it says development, it says DC Studios and initial developments. Alright, this next part comes from the chapter, from what the chapter is called, Gods and Monsters. In January 2023, the DCU was reported to be a broad but not blanket reset of the DCEU. So this is where he starts having a little bit of problems, where he starts having some problems with their plans. We're not even talking about the projects yet. This is where we start having a problem, a little bit. He personally thinks doing this whole, I'll take my, some actors from the previous universe can be kept, and then some events that happened in the previous universe, they can be canon if they're canon, but they happen in a different way or something like that. But he personally is not a fan of that. He personally thinks it should have been not a soft reboot, a hard reboot, where you reboot everything. Yes, it would have been in a difficult decision, sure, but he thinks if you're going to start a new DC universe, you don't want to have the old universe be you don't want to keep the some elements from the previous universe. You want to start fresh. You want to you want to you just want to start fresh, basically. You want to have whole new actors and different writers, maybe. Probably different writers, but probably a different creative team. But yeah, that is what they should have done. A hard reboot, not a soft reboot. Keeping certain things, certain events could happen in this in the DCU. Certain events that happen in the DCEU could have happened in the DCU, but in a different way. No, none of that. Hard reboot. That's just his opinion, once again, though. I continue from that same section. So they revealed the writers who have been working with them on the overall story for the DCU. So Drew Goddard, sorry if he botched that last name, but he was a part of the Daredevil Netflix series. So him being on board for this new DC universe, he thinks is a very good choice. Jeremy Slater, don't know much about that person's work. Now, the Flash writer Christina Hodson is where he has some pause, because he was not a fan of the Flash. He doesn't think most people were. It's just that movie he just wasn't a fan of it, unfortunately. I just think Ezra Miller and like his take on Barry Allen / the Flash, and by the way, he doesn't read comic books like that. He just watches a lot of videos, gathering and hearing this information and learning about the characters that way. I mean, he has read some comic books, not famous ones, like like The Dark Knight Returns or something, or like All-Star Superman. Nothing like that, but like he's read like issues of like I don't, not random, but like I don't really know how to explain it. Like comic books that are part of a run, but one issue of it though. So yeah. But yeah, he's personally not a fan of the Flash movie, and I mean it was another attempt at doing the Flashpoint storyline, it seems to be the most popular, or one of the most popular Flash storylines of all time, and he likes the storyline. Like he thinks their best attempt on it is the DC animated movie, Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox. He thinks that's their best attempt at doing that storyline, because he's never read the original comic book or the comic book run of that storyline. But the movie was very good. He enjoyed it, but that's not what we're talking about. So he's personally not a fan of the writer from that movie being involved in this and being involved with the other people working on the overall story for the DCU. And finally, you have comic book writer Crystal Henry, and then finally comic book writer Tom King. So apparently Tom King is it's like there's like people who like him and like people who don't like, or like his work but don't like his work. So it's kind of like it's 50-50, half and half. So he hasn't read the guy's work, so he doesn't know much about his work. But so yeah, all he knows is that his work, some people, it's half and half for some people who like it and people who don't like it. Now, continuing on here, the writers took inspiration from the Star Wars franchise, which has different times, different places, different things. That's interesting. He personally wouldn't have, that's not personally the direction he would go with it, with the DC Universe, film franchise, because doing different projects all over the timeline, I mean, it's like he understands, there's like prequels, and you got the original trilogy, you got Star Wars the original trilogy, the prequels, the sequel trilogy, whatever thing. So he personally wouldn't do that with a new DC Universe film franchise, but you know, that's what they're doing, so it's hopefully it works out for them. That's what he'll say about that. So yeah, the first chapter, as you guys already know, was titled Gods and Monsters, and the films that were announced were Superman Legacy, later retitled just Superman, The Authority, The Brave and the Bold, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and Swamp Thing. Its first television series announced were Creature Commandos, Waller, Lanterns, Paradise Lost, and Booster Gold. So we'll talk more about the projects later. This is just setting up and talking about, the development first, and then we'll talk about the projects later. So continuing on here, Gunn said the Flash would reset the DCEU continuity, making the DCU a soft reboot, which he's against. The Flash should have come out. Don't say reset. That's just the end of that universe, and you're doing a completely new thing with the DCU, making it a hard reboot. But continuing on here, making the DCU a soft reboot that retains certain cast members and elements of the DCEU while replacing others. Gunn and Safran primarily selected the elements that are carried over based on actors. The pair expected characters to be portrayed by the same actors across mediums, including animation. Alright, so, yeah, once again, he is not a fan of retaining certain cast members and elements of the DCEU while replacing others. He is not a fan of that idea, because if you are trying to start a new DC universe, a new DC universe movie franchise, you want to start fresh. You don't want to keep things from the previous universe, because down the line it could kind of get confusing on what's canon and not canon. At least to me, I don't know if it would be for other people, but it could get confusing. So that's why he thinks they should have just said, you know what, we're gonna do a hard reboot. We're not keeping anybody. We're starting fresh. We're getting all new actors. That's what should have been done. But anyways, continuing on here, the pair expected characters to be portrayed by the same actors across mediums, including animation. Now this is fine, but he definitely thinks, like, for example, like Alan Tudyk or Tudyk, whatever, the guy who voiced Clayface. Sorry if he botched his name, but the guy who voiced Clayface in Creature Commandos, right? Now you see, it says here to be portrayed by the same actors across mediums, but he's not playing Clayface in the Clayface movie. So they've already broken what they've said. They want a younger actor. Well, if you want a younger actor, why couldn't you just cast a younger actor for Clayface in Creature Commandos instead of casting Alan T for the role? I don't know. That's just him. You could just cast the younger actor you wanted for Creature Commandos, and then have that younger actor play Clayface in the live action movie Clayface. But anyways, that's just his opinion on that. But yeah, having characters be portrayed by the same actors across mediums, including animation, that's fine to him. And so another thing from what he said earlier, so it says here, specific moments from the DCEU are deemed to be canon to the DCU if they are directly referenced in the DCU project. And he is not on board with that, because you wouldn't have to do that if you just did a hard reboot. But they didn't. So now, this is how it is. Specific moments from the DCEU, they're canon, but they happen in a different but similar way in the DCU. So specific moments that happen in the DCEU, they've said that it's canon if they are referenced, but they happened in a similar but different way in the DCU. And so, like, that's just weird. You don't need to do that. The hard reboot. I keep saying that, but it's what should have been done. The hard reboot. You wouldn't have to do. You wouldn't have to be doing, different, keeping certain things, certain actors, and certain events if you would just done the hard reboot. But that's enough about that. Alright, so keeping Blue Beetle like Zolo Mariduena, sorry if you botched that name, but him as Blue Beetle, I mean it's fine, I guess, because the his movie doesn't really connect to the other DCEU projects, as they have said, and they are right. They are mostly right, but so keeping him is fine. But here's the issue he has with this one, though. When Gunn and Safran unveiled the first projects on the DCU slate, they said a second season of Peacemaker was delayed while Gunn was busy writing Superman. In February 2023, Gunn confirmed that Peacemaker was not canceled, and he clarified in October that the second season would be set in the DCU continuity. And that is a problem, because the first season was set in the DCEU continuity. So, now that you're saying that the second season would be set in the DCU continuity, that is that's weird. It's just, it just makes things even more complicated than they need to be. Things are already complicated, in his opinion. But they should have just canceled the show. Like like, he enjoyed Peacemaker like mostly everybody else. Like, he thought it was good. All right, he did. But that's not the point, though. The point is that they should have just it should not be getting a second season in this in the DCU. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Like, if they would have waited until until it was announced that James Gunn and Peter Safran were the co-CEOs of DC, and they would have waited, and James Gunn would have waited to make this Peacemaker show in the DCU, it would be fine. But he didn't. So now there's a season in the DCEU continuity, and then now there's a season in the DCU continuity. That's just weird. And he's not on board with that idea. Even if he does like the show, he's not on board with that idea. In December 2024, Gunn explained that despite revealing some titles as part of the first chapter, namely the film The Brave and the Bold and the series Waller and Booster Gold, he would not greenlight a project for production until he is happy with its script and it is where he wants them to be. That's in quotations. And that's fine. You want the script to be as good as it can be before you start filming, and that's fine. Like, yes, you want to see projects immediately, but if they're taking their time and they're making sure the script is written well, the writing and the dialogue is good, and they're taking their time to make sure it is good, that's good. So, yeah. Continuing on here, shortly after, DC Studios greenlit Mike Flanagan's screenplay for Clayface, giving it a release date, releasing it next year in September. Gunn explained that a Clayface project had not been planned, but he had been impressed by Flanagan's take on the character after submitting multiple drafts of the script, that he decided to greenlight the project and find a way to incorporate it into the larger DCU plans. And this is one of those projects that is very odd and very unusual. Because, like, you guys know the Sony Spider-Man list universe where they were doing a bunch of villain movies without Spider-Man. He's not saying this is going to be like that, although it kind of is because it's a Clayface movie, and Batman may or may not be involved in it, because they haven't cast an actor for Batman yet, because they are currently writing The Brave and the Bold, but still. And we don't know who's writing that movie, by the way. It could be, people think it could be James Gunn, because they said they won't want to put pressure on the writer. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not James Gunn. Maybe it's a different writer. Who knows? But we're not talking about that movie right now. We're talking about Clayface. This is one of those projects that is so odd and unusual that it's definitely like, out of all the projects you could do, why would you give Clayface a movie? Like, he thinks the concept of Clayface and his abilities are very cool. He really does. He thinks he's one of the he thinks he's a very cool villain in Batman's Rogues Gallery, but that's not the point. The point is that this is such this is a movie that he doesn't think a lot of people, and him included, would have included in a first chapter, in a first. That would be a movie that they would want to be making when you're setting up a new DC Universe movie franchise. But they did, so we'll see. Hopefully it's good, but this is definitely not a project that a lot of people he thinks a lot of people and him would have included in a new DC Universe movie franchise. Continuing on here, the Brave and the Bold director Andy Muschietti said development on that film had been postponed at that time in part because of DC Studios' strategy to ensure it did not conflict with Reeves' The Batman sequel 2027. In February of this year, Gunn and Safran said they were being flexible with the content output of the DCU, but aimed to release 3 films, 2 live action, and a single animated movie, presumably, per year, alongside 2 live action and 2 animated series. They had an approximate 6-year plan that included crossover projects similar to Marvel Studios' Avengers films, but described each character and project individual chapters of an overall story. Alright, first thing he wants to say here is that he's never been a fan of them hiring Andy Muschietti to direct The Brave and the Bold. Never been a fan, because he was not a fan of The Flash, so obviously he's probably not going to be a fan of him being hired to direct one of the biggest fictional characters movies in the world. He's obviously not going to be on board with him being hired to direct a movie for one of the biggest fictional characters in the world and of all time. So yeah, he was not on board with that. Also, The Brave and the Bold was an animated Batman TV show, which he's never seen, but the title it's fine. He does think they should add Batman, the Brave and the Bold. They should add Batman's name into the title. Just in his opinion, Batman, the Brave and the Bold. I think it works. Yeah. So he's not a fan of Andy Muschietti directing the movie, and the film being postponed to ensure it does not conflict with Reeves' The Batman sequel. I mean, it's fine. He understands that they have to do that because, they don't want, as they said, conflict. It is just unfortunate that they will have to wait even longer to finally get an actor cast for Batman in the DCU, because Batman is my favorite fictional hero or character of all time, and so I'm really looking forward to the day when they announce who they're casting as Batman. So having to wait even longer to find out who that will be is really unfortunate. But he did enjoy the Batman, so he is looking forward to the sequel, which has been delayed, which was coming out set to come out next year, and then they delayed it to 2027. Now, and that's really unfortunate. He's hoping they don't delay it to 2028, because that would not be good. So hopefully they start shooting by the end of this year, and then they can hopefully release the movie in 2027, and then we can finally move on to The Brave and the Bold, and we can find out who's going to be Batman in the DCU. Anyways, being flexible with the content output of the DCU, I guess I don't really have much to say about that. The amount of projects they want to release, some people have said they don't really think they'll ever be able to fully do this this schedule. Uh, but you know, it but it seems like a fine schedule. So yeah, an approximate 6-year plan that included a crossover project similar to Marvel Studios' Avengers films. I think that sounds really cool, and he would be looking forward to that. It's just that also, describe each character and project individual chapters of an overall story. It's just that some of the projects they've announced that are in the DCU and not Elseworlds, it seems like he's heard people say, and he agrees with this, is that it just seems very hard to tell what the overall story is with some of the projects they've announced, like things like Clayface. Like how does that fit into the overall story? Um, like Clayface, he could fall under the monsters side of the title, Gods and Monsters. I mean, I guess that's pretty obvious, but maybe not. But I still don't. He still doesn't fully see how that is going to. How does that fit into the overall story? Um, so yeah, and there are other projects like that, but like Clayface is the one that he definitely. Oh, also Sergeant Rock, but those two for sure. He doesn't really see how those two projects really fit in to into the overall story. So yeah. Alright, moving on to talk about the first project here. It says, although it is not an origin story, the film focuses on a young version of Superman as a reporter interacting with key characters such as Lois Lane. So we're talking about the first project in the DCU, the new Superman movie coming out this year. So yeah, continuing on, as he goes on a journey to reconcile with his Kryptonian heritage with his human family in Smallville, Kansas. Safran describes Superman in the film as the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way. He's kindness in a world that thinks of kindness as old-fashioned. He does think that's a good way to describe, you know, Superman just in general. But he was describing Superman in the film. But he definitely, I think that's a good way to describe Superman in general. So, anyways, continuing on. James Gunn is already writing a new DC film by the middle of November 2022, and revealed it to be a Superman film the next month. He said it would not star the DCEU's Henry Cavill because the script focused on a younger version of Superman. When Gunn and Peter Safran unveiled their initial DCU slate in January 2023, the film was titled Superman Legacy. Superman Legacy. Gunn said the film would take specific inspiration from the comic book All-Star Superman, which ran from 2005 to 2008 by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. Sorry if he botched that name. Along with other comic books. In March, Gunn confirmed he would direct, and Safran was producing with him. David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan were cast as Lois Lane and Superman in June. The title was shortened to just Superman by the end of February 2024, when filming began in Norway and primarily occurred at Trilith Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. Filming wrapped on July 30th. Gunn and Safran consider the film to be the true beginning of the DCU. Superman is scheduled to be released in July of this year, as everybody already knows. And Superman is set after the first season of the animated DCU series Creature Commandos, with Frank Grillo reprising his role as Rex Flag Sr. Additionally, members of the Authority are introduced in Superman ahead of their own film, alongside the introduction of other superheroes including Nathan Fillion as the Green Lantern, Guy Gardner. So he will say that this was definitely the right choice to kick off the DCU, and as is most people, he's really looking forward to this movie, and so he hopes it's good, and he hopes we can get more of these projects that have been announced, especially the projects that he's really looking forward to, like The Brave and the Bold. Yeah, he's never read the comic book, All-Star Superman. Never read it, but hopefully it's a good, it's a good comic books run, and it's taking inspiration from it is a good thing in other comic books. So yeah, this was definitely a smooth production from pre-production, production, and post-production, as people have said. So that's good. You like to see that. So yeah. Having it be set after the first season of Creature Commandos, that's fine. So yeah. Alright, so guys, the video is getting way too long. It's gonna be the longest video he's ever done. Well, actually, the second and third longest video he's ever done on this channel. And because he's rambling on and on, and saying the same things over and over and over again, which he's probably gonna do in the next part of this video. We're gonna split this video up into 2 parts and talk about the next projects. Some of the projects he doesn't have a lot to say about them because there's not a lot of information that has been revealed about them. But we're still gonna talk about them. Yeah. So we're just going to split this video into 2 parts. So this was the first part, and now the second part we're gonna record it and release it. So yeah, like and subscribe.